President Karzai, thank you for being with us today. We wanted to give you an opportunity to say a few remarks, and then I will have 3 or 4 questions for you this morning. Please.
All right. Are we ready?
We are ready.
All right. My dear friend, Mr. President, Mrs. Bush, Mr. Hadley, Ambassador Khalizad, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to have the opportunity to address you today, and I thank President Bush for his remembering me even today, for asking me to speak to you. President Bush and Mrs. Bush have been good friends of Afghanistan. They were full of care for Afghanistan. I'm glad to see that they still continue to be caring for Afghanistan. I'm particularly grateful for the event today, throwing light on the progress and the difficulties that we still have in Afghanistan with regard to the economic progress of our country and the status of women. Ladies and gentlemen, Afghanistan 10 years ago began a journey, as President Bush described, and today we are at the 10th year of that journey. Now, the progress that we have achieved in these 10 years is in terms of especially women in their emancipation and the opportunity to participate in public life in Afghanistan are certainly immense. As we are talking, and as you already know, we have 28% of women in the parliament. We have them in the Senate. Last year, we had a major peace council participated by 1,700 Afghans from all over the country, in which 21% were, for the first time in Afghan history, women. And the peace council includes 8 women as well. The Afghan rural economy is mainly contributed to by women, carpet weaving, cottage industries, and the Afghan women are beginning also to emerge, though slowly, in the modern business sector. Afghan women are participating in a large scale and very happily in our media. According to our media people, there are at least 40% in the media. They make 37% of school students. 28% of our teachers are women. 18% of our teachers in universities, professors are women, and 15% of our 18% are students in universities, and 15% are teachers in our universities. They also have a good presence in our administration. So in short, the emergence of women in Afghanistan has been good and to our satisfaction. This was possible both because of the contribution of the international community to Afghanistan and also because the Afghan people were eager to see this happen. Without the participation of Afghan women and without the courage of the Afghan women and the environment in Afghanistan allowing this would have been impossible. All the more, I would like to once again thank the people of the United States, the taxpayers in America, who have helped, particularly in the areas of education and health services. This is an area in which Afghanistan has made good progress, though Afghanistan still remains to be among the poorest countries in the world, where child and mother mortality are still very high, where illiteracy is still very high, where the needs of the country are still massive. But what we have achieved in the past 10 years is what we are grateful for, and for that we thank the American people. We have a great journey ahead of us. As Frost, the famous American poet, would say, the woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. and miles to go before I sleep. Indeed, we have miles and miles and miles and miles before we can say with satisfaction that we have achieved something for our country, but what we have today is good enough, and we will continue to work together towards that objective. I once again express my gratitude to the President and Mrs. Bush and to the American people for their contribution to the well-being of Afghans in areas of health and education and all other areas where that help has been available to the Afghan people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is undeniable that women have made enormous progress in Afghanistan under your leadership, and it is a great credit to you and to your administration. I want to ask just 3 or 4 questions, if I might. I'd like to draw you out a little bit more on that record and say, as you look forward over the next 2, 3, 4 years, what are the 2 or 3, do you think, biggest challenges and biggest opportunities in terms of the advancement of women's freedom and women's opportunity?
Well, sir, as we are talking, Afghanistan has become able to allocate $5 million of its own revenues to the education of the Afghan youth abroad for graduate and postgraduate education, and half of those students will be women who will be traveling abroad to gain higher education. Just yesterday, I had an amazingly good meeting with 30 youth organizations of Afghanistan from all over the country, and in that meeting of nearly 100, 120 people, 25 to 30% were young women, and had a great participation in the presentation of ideas and the future of Afghanistan, the way they saw it. In my opinion, our greatest effort will be to continue to provide them education and to continue to provide them better health services. It's only through education that real, deeply rooted enablers can be provided to Afghan women, and that is what we should continue to do. In politics and in economy on their own, they have done very, very well. And they will continue to expand that scope. In the media, as I've already mentioned, they have a very large and very powerful presence, and I'm sure 3 years from now and many years after, they will be doing a lot better in all those areas too.
Thank you, Mr. President. Afghan women, like women everywhere, seek peace and a secure environment for themselves and for their children. Could you talk a little bit about what your hopes are for the reconciliation process with the Taliban and how that will affect Afghan women?
This is a very important area to the Afghan women. They want peace, definitely, but they also want peace that keeps the gains that they have made. They also want peace that respects the gains that they've made, and peace that will not only keep the gains that they've made, but advance the gains that they've made in the Afghan life. And the prospects for peace are looking better. We have established the High Council for Peace, as I mentioned, with participation of women as well in it. We have clear benchmarks for that peace, which is with those of the Taliban who are not part of Al-Qaeda, who are not part of other terrorist networks, who are not ideologically against the citizens of Afghanistan, their own country, or the rest of the world, and who will be making sure that while peace is made, that the Afghan women continue to go to school, continue to participate in social and political affairs, continue to advance their economic interests in the country, and continue to gain and work shoulder to shoulder with Afghan men into the future.
Mr. President, as you know, there's a certain amount of apprehension among women. We've all seen how brutally they were treated under the Taliban, and nobody wants to go back. one of the great accomplishments of your administration are those provisions in the Constitution that seek to ensure women's equality and protection against discrimination. Can you say a word about the ability and commitment to retain those provisions in any reconciliation conversations with the Taliban?
There should be no doubt in our minds that there will not be any changes. And I can say this with 100% confidence. There will not be any changes allowed by the Afghan people that will diminish or reduce the gains that women have made, that will reduce their role in the Afghan society, because what we have accomplished is what the Afghan people wanted. Without the support of the Afghan people, the entire country, this would have not been possible. So definitely, affirmatively, I can assure you that the gains will be maintained. Not only that the gains will be maintained, but we will work towards a brighter future for Afghan women who have indeed suffered in Afghanistan because of the Taliban, because of the years of war and the misery that those wars brought to Afghanistan, because of the economic hardships, and because of the fact that the country was almost completely destroyed. And when a country is destroyed, it's like a home that is destroyed. In a home, the first sufferers are women, because they are the ones who look after their children and their husbands and their family members. So they bore the brunt of the war and the suffering in Afghanistan. And in peace, they should have the maximum gain from peace into a better future. This is something that's in our conscience. This is something that we are aware of. This is something that we will only advance but never allow to retard.
Mr. President, we're very grateful for your participation today. We thank you very much. All the best to you, sir.